All right, welcome back. This is episode 67. We're glad that you're with us. Let's get started. Last episode, we started this discussion of usefulness versus unusefulness. And if unusefulness is not a word, it has now officially been deemed a word, unuseful. Useful versus not useful. There we go. That's the better way of saying it. And to continue the illustration from yesterday, there will be some believers who will be not so useful, kind of like this old phone, which will definitely appear right here. And I guess you could say that, maybe this has some use, maybe as a paperweight. You could put it in a museum for people to look at. So there's some use maybe, but it's not really that useful, right? Especially if you can't even make calls on it anymore. Rather, you want to be something like this. Insert this picture, Tommy, of whatever the newest iPhone is, where just as this phone right here can be used for so many things like calling, texting, investing, GPS, games, whatever, there are believers who will be used by God for so many things, prepared and ready for every good work. And as we've talked about this question of how exactly do I become the kind of person who will be used by God? Paul brings the discussion back to you and I, that we need to become the kind of people who are set apart from our sin. Because if we don't take serious measures to get rid of the sin in our lives, we will miss out on what God has for us. We'll be so focused on ourselves that we'll overlook people who need help in the church. And as we come to verse 22, Paul continues answering this question of how. How do we become useful for the master so that we will be ready for everything that ministry will throw our way? And so let's see what Paul says. Verse 22. Now, by the way, this is a great day because look at this. 2 Timothy 2:22. Look at all these twos here. Anyways, all right, that was for free. All right, now flee. It's getting weird. All right, now flee. Now flee. This word flee has the same kind of idea. Let's pretend you're walking down the street. You're walking along. Here's the street, and here you are. And maybe you're on a picnic with your lady friend. Maybe you're taking your kids for a walk. Who knows what you're doing? You're with your dog. I don't know. And then out of nowhere, guess what appears? A giant sunflower. No, a giant lion. And you know this is a lion because I have labeled it lion. And so you see this lion and you see its teeth. And what do? Do you smile and say, "Get over here, lion, I love you"? No. Instead, what you do is you what? You run. You run away in this direction. The arrows are going this way, right? You run away for your life. You flee as quickly as you can. You don't stick around. You try to get out. And Paul says that you take that same kind of intensity and now look at what you flee away from. Away from youthful lusts. Away from youthful lusts. This phrase can include things. Oh, and really quick. Maybe you're sitting there and you're like, hey, does this phrase, youthful lusts, even apply to me? Because maybe you're a little bit older or whatever. So maybe you're wondering, hey, should I even listen to this really quick? You should, because this phrase can be looking at people who, yes, are young in terms of their age, but also people who have the mentality of being young at heart. So this phrase covers a lot of ground and a lot of people. And so whenever Paul says here, youthful lusts, this phrase can include things like pride, thinking that you know it all. It can include things like arrogance, thinking that you're better than others. It can include impatience of wanting results right away, not willing to wait. It can include ignorance, thinking that you know it all, but you really don't. It can include immaturity of not being controlled in your emotions. And so this phrase, youthful lusts, it's such a broad term because there are so many things that young people and people who are young at heart must flee away from. And so not only do we flee and run away from these things, but we also look right here, we pursue. We pursue. It's where you are so fixed. You are so set aggressively on something to such an extent that it becomes an obsession where you are tunnel vision and you are fixed and set on this thing right here on righteousness. The first of four things, righteousness, that you are conforming yourself to the standard of what God has said in his word, that you don't do what is wrong, instead you do what is right. Second, what you pursue is you pursue faith. that you trust God entirely, that you're faithful day in and day out. And third, you pursue this, you pursue love. You pursue love where you are seeking another person's good, that you put their needs above your own, and that you choose them over yourself. And fourth, you pursue this, you pursue peace. You pursue peace, that there's this harmony and that there's this kindness between yourself and other believers. And well, all of this brings us to the last phrase for today. And so we know that we must pursue righteousness and faith and love and peace, but look at where and look at with whom you must pursue these things. With those who call upon the Lord from a pure heart. This is such a powerful reminder that the church must do this together, that you can't be Lone Ranger. All of this must be pursued within the community of God's people, within the church. And so, yes, there will be unbelievers who attend church, but God has always preserved a remnant, a group of believers. And Paul says, when you go to church and when you serve, you find those people and you focus on living your Christian life with them.
All right, episode 67 today with 2 Timothy 2:2:2. We have a couple questions for you, and they all kind of revolve around community and pursuing that, which Paul commands us to do. First question, though, is are there any youthful lusts that are getting in the way of that community? Is there pride or arrogance that you have that is just causing division instead of benefiting and building up the church? And then the second one is let's talk about each one of those things. So Paul lists off to pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, and doing all those things together in the church. So are you pursuing each of those things, and how are you pursuing them individually? All right, that is what we've got for today, and we will see you all back here tomorrow.